Hey YouTube, friends, family, club members. Good to have you with me. Jeremy Wright here. I'm doing a tank talk today. This is my North American 55-gallon tank. It mostly has orange and yellow guppies and a ton of native North American plants. There are probably the only thing I can think of that's not North American is there's a little bit of Christmas moss stuck on that bit of driftwood there. But zooming back out, let's talk about the tank. What's going on? What is it? This tank started about 2 years ago, actually because I was having trouble with diseases in a gravel bottom 55-gallon tank similar to this. My guppies kept getting sick. In frustration and research, I decided to go back to something I was better at, which is dirted tanks with sand caps. And there's one just below it. That's my South American tank, just below the North American tank. But we're talking about this one today. This is Tank E, Echo. And my tanks are in alphabetical order, whatever. That's how I keep up with them, so whatever. But this tank was started as guppy breeding space and a healthy experiment because I had experience running Walstad type tanks, and then when I discovered Father Fish, became friends with him, I really found that we had a lot of shared ideas. And let's walk up and look at that substrate. I was actually standing on a step stool. So the substrate, almost all of my tanks get about an inch of soil and then about 2 inches of sand. From there, this is not the kind of sand I prefer. This is concrete sand. And honestly, it's a little bit finer than the sand I prefer, which is pool filter sand. And I don't have, actually I do have some close to show you, hang on. This is pool filter sand. Larger grains, larger granules. We might not get good focus, but yeah, that's what pool filter sand is compared to concrete sand, which is very fine sand. So looking up here again, there's lots of stuff growing in here, but the soil and sand combination, believe it or not, isn't for the plants. It helps the plants tremendously. But the reason I do this is for disease prevention and the health of the tank. Because when you use a natural soil and sand, you have automatically introduced thousands, likely, of species of aquatic microbiology. Some of them may be more like macrobiology. Sorry for reflection there. Some of them may be macrobiology. That first place was actually for one of the guppies in here. See that orange dude? Either him or one of his brothers. Actually, might have been that dude. He's a good looker. But one of those guys won a first place contest in a guppy show recently, earlier in the year. But yeah, how do you get really healthy fish? You put them in a healthy aquarium. Give them good water conditions. This tank, the nitrates stay at 0, ammonia stays at 0. Obviously, it's what I would consider pretty heavily planted. We can go heavier than that, but that's sufficient. A tank needs to have light that can come down from the surface. This tank has 3-phase lighting. I don't know if I'll be able to show you, but there's a Finex and then 2 shop lights. And let's see, there is one sponge filter. It's just an aquarium co-op style large sponge filter, and then a heater that's unplugged. Temp in here stays pretty warm. 79 to 81 degrees is really common. It's probably about 80.5 or 81 degrees right now at the bottom of the tank. So the top of the tank's a little warmer than that. And yeah, heater's not necessary. I keep my home fairly warm so I'm not fighting energy consumption, fighting to cool off the air and then raise the temperature in the aquarium after it's had cold air blowing on it. That's silly. I'll just raise the temperature in the home so it's not too cold for the fish. In the day, my home is usually about 77 degrees. That's where I commonly set it. At night, I generally set it at 73 degrees. So, yeah, that heater's just up there being ugly and not being used, but it's kind of hard to get to, so whatever. Let's talk about the biosystem again. I mentioned when I use dirt, I'm introducing thousands of species of microbiology. That is super beneficial. That is not harmful. Microbiology will struggle and strive against other microbiology and against macrobiology. The more types, the more biodiversity you have, the more stable your system is. You can certainly end up with unhealthy things, like if you introduce sick fish that have internal parasites or something. But there is no need to fear bringing some outside biology from, say, a healthy pond, a healthy creek, a little bit of mud from a lake you visit, something like that. Go ahead and throw that in your aquarium. What it does is it seeds the biology such that things can be more stable. I view it very much as each different species is sort of tugging in a different direction. That goes for microbiology as well. It also goes for plants and fish. But if everything's tugging in a different direction away from center, the more species you introduce, the more likely it is that things will just naturally find center and find equilibrium, all on their own. So let's get a look at some of these fish and the water droplet. That dude's cool. Some of his brethren up here, very cool. This is a colony I've been working on for roughly 2 years. This is my orange colony. Some of them aren't as orange as others, but the goal is to have the orange dudes breeding and pull out the males, the adult males, who don't seem as orange as I might like. Pull the ones who are more red or more yellow or lacking color. But overall, very healthy tank. Lots of North American stuff. Most of the stuff in here is native to North America. Let's talk about the plants now. The obvious, there's some duckweed in the top. There are also just some floating stems. That's a bacopa stem. Cool. I'll have to deal with it. There's also little bits of, it looks like Roripa aquatica, which is water cabbage. That shouldn't be floating. That is actually, let's see, this plant right here. Center screen, different foliage, new growth. So this is like the winter growth when it was very shaded. This is more like the warm season growth up here. And I actually trimmed this plant, so the growth is a little bit different. But if you break a leaf off of this plant, it will grow a new piece from that leaf that looks very similar to this. And I'll probably be able to find a bit of Roripa aquatica in here that's floating, so I can share with you. Bacopa caroliniana. There's Egeria densa, also known as Elidea densa, also known as anacharis. Anacharis is a plant. Let me see some of this. Lots of it over here. So it's a plant that is very commonly misidentified. And that's not actually the Latin name for this, but Egeria densa or Elidea densa are commonly called anacharis. But the anacharis plant, if you find it in a pet store, it could be, gosh, like 30 different plants that are called anacharis. This one is Elidea densa. You can see it right there. Like, it's got a growth habit very, very similar to Rotala's. Pretty good stuff. It's actually one of the workhorses of my hobby. It does a really good job being fast growing and consuming a lot of water chemistry. Some other really cool stuff down here. Physidens fontanus, sorry for the glare and the dirty glass. Physidens fontanus is a North American moss. Phoenix moss. One of my very favorite mosses. Love it, love it. Also down in here, lots of chain swords hanging out. four-leaf cloveries that my buddy Jack got me. Echinodorus hybrid. That's a plant that doesn't actually exist in the wild. It's a flame sword. It's a hybrid between several, at least Echinodorus bartii and Echinodorus schlutteri, I believe. Toward the top, some of those dark stems, that's probably alligator weed. Alternanthera phylloxetes. One of my very favorite plants in the aquarium hobby, right here. Let me get a little closer and focus. Mermaid weed, marsh mermaid, Proserpinaca palustris. I've got about 4 stems of that growing in here. I love this plant. One of my very, very favorites for the hobby. Over here, another North American plant, Diota. Super cool. I find that stuff growing in my grandmother's yard, other people's yards. Let me see, where is it? Right there, that one. And there's probably some more toward the back, I believe. Yeah, but that's a fine example right there. Anyway, this is what's going on in Tank E. Some of the plants that are here, the fishies that are here. I'm going to zoom out, give you a view of what's going on again before we cut. But yeah, this is my North American tank. I enjoy the heck out of it. It has been rock solid stable. The stability came from soil under sand, a proper 2-inch sand cap over an inch of mixed soil, not like potting soil or potting mix, just soil from outside, preferably from an aquatic area, so it has the proper types of microbiology. The other stability factor came from lots of biodiversity in the plants. I did not mention all the plants in here, but we can just get a glance and see that this is a fairly well planted system. There's not a lot of room for me to come through and plant other things. That heavy mix of biodiversity is how you get a healthy aquarium that you hardly ever have to do water changes on. All you need to do is give it light and food. That is the goal of a balanced, planted freshwater aquarium. I hope you enjoy that. I'm going to do further tank talks. If you'd like to see some more of them, I've got at least 20 tanks inside and lots of systems outside. Lots of things that aren't tanks inside too, window jars and stuff. If you'd like to see this stuff, give me a like or subscribe. And until next time, catch you later. Thanks for joining.